Cross Country Championships here on ESPN+. Top teams on both sides in both races. We know a lot of racing fans tuned in. Perhaps a precursor not just for regionals, but for the NCAA championships in just a few weeks' time as we see who has what medal here in the cross-country postseason. The men before the ladies today, you will not miss a single moment of the action from start to finish of both races and then all the way to the awards ceremony here at Rimrock Farm for the fourth time playing host to these Big 12 cross-country championships. Alongside Lara Overton, I'm Will Haskett, and reason why we think we're going to have a lot of running fans with us today, Lara, is these teams, the powerhouses that we have in this race. The men getting lined up at the line right now. We've got 1 versus 2 in this one, and perhaps some spoilers with 4 in the top 10.
It's exactly right. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Colorado, and BYU. This is one of the toughest meets in the country all season long. Certainly one of the toughest conference meets that you're going to see this weekend with all of those nationally ranked teams going head-to-head for Big 12 bragging rights. These are those exact same teams. They're going to battle it out at the NCAA championships next month with also a number of individuals who are going to be contending for that individual title.
And they are underway. The gun has sounded. We will have eye-in-the-sky coverage for much of this 8K race on a really difficult layout here at Rimrock Farm, Lara, because of what we expect to be kind of the pacing strategy of these top teams. This is not a track, even on an ideal day. Conditions are absolutely perfect to run today, but you cannot really push the pace, can you, on this 8,000-meter layout?
If you do push it, you're going to pay for it later on, because this is what's described to me as a very old-school style cross-country course, notoriously challenging, a number of turns, climbs, steep descents, a couple of covered bridges on the course, and some really big uphills, especially on the latter part. That second half is where you're going to face the steepest climb of this entire terrain, and you can see Iowa State is packed together at that lead. That's what you would expect from that group, led by Josh Rudo, and then Robin Kwamoy-Berra and Sanelli Masando is that lead trio that we anticipated to be there, looking to shake things up alongside Oklahoma State and BYU.
There you see that roster for the number 1 team in the country, including a couple of All-Americans in Rudo and Kwamoy-Berra. They did not run in the last time out for Iowa State. That's obviously been a big story. We wondered coming in. They were entered. Iowa State with the statement, the very quick statement, that they were looking forward to competing in this championship and having their entire roster here. They towed the line, they've started the race, and we are going to get full strength a couple of teams that we know are going to be jockeying for this Big 12 championship. 3-time Big 12 champs, the Cyclones of Iowa State, 2-time national champions. They were 1 spot away from winning it all a year ago at the national level, and you just sort of wonder, with that power versus the experience that you see on this screen right here, including the 2-time defending Big 12 individual champion in Brian Musau, will that experience carry the Cowboys past the Cyclones in this 1 versus 2 battle?
Experience, especially at the championship level, always heavily factors into these situations, especially because of this course and the group of competition, the field that you have to maintain a level of composure within. You have to be certainly aware of your surroundings, where you can take opportunities. Here you have a nice long kind of straightaway stretch where you can take advantage of and vie for positioning a little bit, but you have to be aware of your terrain. You also have to be aware of your positioning simultaneously. So this is a group with the caliber you have surrounding you that if someone makes a move, you want to be able to respond very quickly and take advantage. Very tightly packed there atop the front. And we talked about Oklahoma State, of course, Brian Musau going for 3 straight individual Big 12 titles, a feat that has only been accomplished 1 other time. That was Colorado's Jorge Torres, who did it from 2000 to 2002. Looks like, from what I can see at this point right here, that nice shot, looks like James Corrigan, the Olympian in the steeplechase, currently leading for BYU. Last year, BYU swept the men's and women's team titles at the conference meet, then went on to do it at the NCAA meet as well.
Yeah, BYU winning this race a year ago, but it was the number 5 man from that race, Davin Thompson, who's the highest returning finisher. You mentioned Corrigan there at the front trying to sort of set that pace. You see Iowa State, they're all stuck in there on the inside of that track. Hard to miss Oklahoma State. They're always in that bright orange. We've seen a few sprinkled throughout, and they had some pack there towards the middle, but still no separation. Some 20-25 athletes still in that big front pack in this 8,000-meter layout that will twist and turn its way through the property. The big hills in this turnout for them really coming towards the end. It's ups and downs, but really more the turns, Lara, that you have to deal with in this one throughout the course of this race. Even though it's wide, you're just never really on a straightaway to get an idea of where things are stretching out.
That's a great point, and especially when you saw that overhead angle, there are two things to be aware of. You don't want to go too far out wide to run all of that extra distance, but you also want, to not really try to get trapped on the inside too much, so you allow yourself to make movement when you need it. You also, sometimes, if you have a quick, sharp left turn into a right, you don't want to hug either angle. You almost want to live a little bit more toward the middle and run that tangent to be really efficient, as we're seeing a bit of separation. And one thing notably about a conference championship meet is for some of these athletes who ran very deep into the track season, late into the summer with U.S. championships. This was also a world championship year. An athlete like James Corrigan, who was competing in the steeple until late July, early August. Some of these athletes are really just ramping up into their season. So this is a point where it can be very tough to kind of predict or pontificate the results, because you don't exactly know where certain people are. Of course, Iowa State has had some great runs so far this season. Oklahoma State has as well. I think, BYU is one of those teams that always, you see Ed Eyestone's group really come into form when you get to championship season. You mentioned that you can always identify Oklahoma State. Some like to refer to it as America's brightest orange. You can certainly see that, and there is the lineup of BYU on your screen right now, those Cougars from Provo.
We'll have our first split coming up at 1 mile, which the participants have been working their way towards. We'll have splits for you coming through 1 mile, 3K, 5K, and then 7K before the finish. And as soon as we see those come across our timing monitors, we'll relay that to you and obviously get that up on the screen as those are presented to us. But we wondered if there would be anybody that would try to be the rabbit, right? Would you be the hare today and try and maybe force some teams or some athletes to get out of their comfort zone? But it appears right now, Lara, that no one's really going to take that bait. And we've got a pretty good little peloton of still some 20-25 athletes at the front of this race, and many in that noticeable Oklahoma State bright orange and then that Iowa State yellow, all just sort of tracking together there in the first 15 or so runners on your screen.
And it is starting to get a little bit of separation. You're seeing some within that pack. And one of the reasons, and you're seeing that, is Dominic Serum there, the newcomer to the Colorado program. Previously, he competed at Toledo, where he was the 2024 MAC champion. He has been a great addition to the Buffaloes program so far this season. Talked with head coach Sean Carlson just yesterday, and he said that Dominic had a really good base from Toledo coming into Colorado, but didn't necessarily anticipate how quickly he would adapt, and has certainly been an incredible addition to their program. He said the really cool part about Dominic is he's been such a great culture piece and has really relinquished some of his individual goals or individual race plans to benefit the team. The plan for them was to come in and pack Dominic with Dean Casey, and that's what you really see at a conference meet, and why you're not going to see a ton of separation or anyone, to your point, kind of go out and push the pace early on, is because you're trying to use the team tactic around you. You want to bring your teammates alongside you, because this team race on the men's standpoint is probably going to be decided by 10 or fewer points. So you want to keep your spread from your first scorer to your fifth as tight as possible. Brian Musau has now started to string that pack along and move comfortably up front. Dennis Kippengetich and Fouad Masoudi are his other two teammates who are there in that lead pack. All of these athletes have fantastic championship experience to be able to use to their advantage. Musau, not only a big Big 12 cross-country champion twice over, as we mentioned. Also a 3-time NCAA track and field champion in the 5K and the DMR.
You take anything away, first split coming there at the 1 mile, BYU with that early lead, more to do with the fact that you haven't had the separation of the top runners from maybe the top two, but at least a good start for Ed Eyestone's crew to have guys at that point in time, 3 through 21, the counting spots for the Cougars to at least say, you know what, we're in this fight today to try and win this championship. Absolutely.
And one thing, about the BYU group and talking with Coach Eyestone yesterday is he said that his guys were relishing the opportunity to race on this type of, a very tough, true cross-country course. They were excited and eager, for that opportunity that they had given this situation, because this is a course that's going to challenge you not exactly to be fast. You're going to be challenged to be tough. You're going to be challenged to be gritty. And this is a situation where you throw this kind of speed or splits kind of out the window to some regard, because you're focused on just racing really well. It's going to be tough in this situation to probably have one of your better times or one of the faster times of your season, but it's all about racing and positioning. There's one of those really sharp, tight turns, and you can see how the guys in the lead pack really took that kind of more to the outside so they could position themselves right there for that next move upcoming.
So it's Rudo on the inside of the 2-time champion Musau. As they make their way around this bend, you see the 3,000, the 3K splits coming through in Iowa State and Oklahoma State, taking that 1 and 2 spot at the 3K mark in this race. And again, so much jockeying there, but now you're starting to see those top 9 or 10 athletes really starting to separate away at the front of this race as the pace becoming a little bit more unsustainable. And we mentioned that hot BYU start. Corrigan was at the front at that last split. BYU trying to hold on to at least one top 10 individual spot, and it looks as if the legs just aren't going to keep up right now with the top couple of teams, that being, of course, 1 and 2 in the nation. But they are tucked in right now in the battle that you would expect, with Joash Ruto and Brian Musau at the front of this pack with a few others right on their shoulders. But not just individual glory, but team glory. Whoever finishes one between those two, it's very rare, Lara, that you are in this race, and whoever ends up winning doesn't necessarily have that key point necessarily. You always look at the 4 and 5 runner when it comes to team championships. These teams are so deep and so solid, it could be, does Musau outkick Ruto to finish 1/2. That could be the difference in this race.
Oh, absolutely.
Very rare the number 1 runner becomes the difference maker like a 4 or 5. Now you see that pace and a little bit of a pull away here.
Now Ruto is trying to punish the field just a little bit, take advantage of these opportunities that he has along that straightaway, coming into a bit of a bend at this point, and pretty good response from the pack. I mean, they're not letting him get too far away. They've done a good job of staying in close contact. These athletes are all so familiar with racing one another. You can see that they used that little stretch right there to catch right back up. So it looked like, although Ruto was really trying to get a bit of separation, quick response from Brian Musau has him right back up front. And in talking with OK State coach Dave Smith, he said the intensity for Brian and for Dennis has really been similar to the great 2023 season that they have. They've been very intentional with their build to be sure that their legs are still full of run to this point in the season. Fawad Masaudi has been coming back. He's been on a big progression coming off of last season. His confidence is growing coming into championship season as well.
You can count all 5 Iowa State jerseys in this front pack of some 20 runners. But if you look back a little bit deeper, if you count that orange, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Oklahoma State jerseys all within view of the screen right now. So the Cowboys just hoping that maybe that depth, that they can keep those trailers near the front and pick off a few runners. You never know what those positions might be right now, because at least from a depth standpoint, Oklahoma State in an advantageous spot. But those at the front, you saw those splits at 3,000. We'll have another split coming up at the 5K mark. So just 500 meters away from getting another crack at what this looks like.
Just by the numbers, just look, you've got 3 Oklahoma State within the top 7 right now. Also, look at all of that gold. It looks like that Iowa State has 5 or 6.
Might be 6. Yeah, now you look at it a little bit deeper.
Theirs in that lead pack. So that is Rudo, complemented by Robin Quamoy-Berra and Sanelli Masando, a core group from Iowa State's national runner-up team from last year's cross-country championship.
Do want to shout out Evans Tanui, the freshman from Arizona. He's up there trying to look for a high finish. Titus Kamaru, also a freshman from Texas Tech, part of that lead group within it. As you see this lead pack approaching that 5K mark. What do you learn from your body right now if you're in this lead pack?
How well you've prepared, how well you've trained. That is everything that you've put in kind of builds you to this point. Tons of tough workouts, all of that, and then also really just trusting that competitive instinct. This part is completely mental. So I would say what you're learning right now is the mental toughness and how much that is coming into play at this point, because even there's a lot of time for doubt to creep in at this point in time. So being able to quickly, anytime that you're feeling that pain, and you're certainly getting to that point where you're going to feel it, and when you get to the 4-mile mark, that's the toughest part, because you're going to hit that big hill. So this is the point where you want to start composing yourself so you can make a final push over the last 2,000 meters in particular. That's where this race is going to be decided. And Iowa State caught a ton of attention by their race at the Gans Creek Classic last month. Rudo was runner-up in that invitational. That's where the national championship meet will be run. His teammates Berra, Masando, and Rogers Kiplimo, all good part of that as well. So that's kind of what really helped solidify them as being one of those teams to target coming here into championship season, where you have, of course, the conference championship, you will have the regional meet, the qualifier for the national championships, and then nationals at the end of November.
Really indiscernible, the top 12 or 15 or so runners still running in that pack, but you can kind of see how they crossed a fraction of a second away from one another at the 5K mark of this race. I can tell you from a team standpoint, at that moment, it was Oklahoma State by just 3 points, and you can see why, with runners coming across in 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 9th at that point. But again, so much to be determined over the final 3,000 meters of this race.
Dominic Sarum from Colorado has been really impressive to this point when you're looking at the group that he is running with right now. He was going into this certainly with a specific race plan of being intentional early on, and then putting himself in a position to challenge late. And this is where you're starting to see, this is where the gutsy moves are going to happen, and your experienced veteran racers are going to try to take the sting out of the legs of some of those who have those threatening, lethal closing kicks.
Can Iowa State looking for its 4th Big 12 championship? Oklahoma State has 13 of them. That's what we're playing for as the runners come through Kings Bridge here. They'll make the turn to a little bit of a clearing, then they'll come back through the woods. When they hit the woods a second time, Lara, that's when you're going to hit that final hill, separate the men from the boys coming to the finish line in this one for the final 1,000 meters. Also history, if at the front of this track, if Brian Musau can hold on to a spot and win this race for a 3rd consecutive year, he would be the 2nd athlete in Big 12 history to win 3 consecutive men's cross-country championships. Jorge Torres of Colorado doing that back in 2000, 2001, and 2002. A lot on the line in this race today. If you're wondering, on a perfect running day, the Big 12 8K record in this championship is 22 minutes, 16.0 seconds. Not sure if this course has a record time in it, although the record time here at Rimrock was run in 2020 by an Iowa State athlete. That was Wesley Kiptoo. He ran it in 22:35.4. And again, an absolutely ideal day for running. I would not be surprised if whoever crosses first today might be underneath that 22:35 mark from 5 years ago.
And this is where they're starting to come up. The 4-mile mark is where they are going to hit what some people acknowledge as the Billy Mills ascent, which is a very steep climb on this course, and that's where you're going to see separation within that front pack. And this is where this point in the race is the experience and the dominance that Oklahoma State has shown when they have won consecutive championship titles, all of that will come into play and factor in. You have someone like Brian Musau, who's been an NCAA champion. You have, Dennis Kibben-Gedich, who was the Midwest regional champion last year. They have all of that experience in their favor at this point to capitalize on the opportunities that they have. They really love, this is a group that prides themselves, Oklahoma State, on being disruptive. They want to bring stress to the field when the rest of the field does not expect it. So I would expect that Oklahoma State Cowboy crew to start to punish the rest of the field at this portion of the race.
Right there at the bottom of your screen, that is the 7K timing mark. They come out of the woods after making that climb. We'll do a big left-hand hook around this little cottonwood pond, and then it'll be the final 1,000 meters in this race, and we wait with anticipation, as you do as well, to see exactly if there has been that separation, who has put themselves in position to try and outkick the competition to the finish line about 200 meters or so away from seeing who emerges out of the woods in that position.
And it's Brian Musau up front. Rudo is giving chase. You can see that cluster of Oklahoma State right there, along with some of those Iowa State Cyclones as well. Now for Oklahoma State, experience factors in, and where they can force the field at this point to make those difficult decisions and make some moves before they are anticipated. And this is, when you look at those two teams and the number of athletes that they have right up front, from a team standpoint, every position becomes critical right now. If you're a coach, you're telling your athlete, catch one guy, catch one person in front of you at this point, catch two if you can, because those who are not experienced running these challenging type of courses, this is where they can falter. There you see right now, 1, 2, and 3, Oklahoma State. Josh Rudo there in fourth.
A dominating sprint there for Oklahoma State to have the top 3 spots going into this final sprint. And as the next scoring runners come across, it is a 25-point lead for Oklahoma State, timing at the 7K split in first, second, third, seventh, and eighth. Dominating stuff from the Cowboys, who want to enter this postseason by saying, we are the team to beat nationally this year. And you see that pack. It is a lonely run for just 2 Iowa State runners, with Rudo and Berra there now alongside. Berra coming up now to get into a top 5 position, but 3 Oklahoma State jerseys, and then you've got right behind it Musau, who's also there just lurking on the outside of the top 5, but exactly what the Cowboy fans wanted to see from their pack today, because they have taken the meat of this course, Lara, and they have turned it into a dominating position with now just 500 meters to go.
And they've done it by using one another. They really have helped each other through this. They've packed together. They've pushed one another through this point of the course. So if they come away with the victory, and look at that separation that they've gotten from what we were talking about back at, say, the 5K mark, where it was about maybe a 3-point spread. Look at what they have done to this point. This has been incredible racing by Oklahoma State, and incredible team tactics. I think what's most impressive is this was not just about one guy's race plan. This was about the collective team race plan to bring one another along to this point.
Now can Musau make it 3 in a row? It looked for a minute like he may have been the one that got to the front, but reeled back in. They'll make that right-hand turn into the chute to sprint to the finish, and it is anybody's guess who's going to win this race from an individual standpoint. So there are still 5 contenders right there at the front.
And they have a big climb and then a big downhill. Once you get to the top of the hill, that finish line is going to come up really, really quick. So you have to be pushing your pace. As punishing as it is coming up the hill, you cannot wait for the descent to start your kick. Also, notably, Titus Kamaru, the freshman from Texas Tech, being right up there in the top 5. What an impressive run from the Red Raider.
It's going to be Musau against his teammate. It's Kibben-Gedich who's going to try and run him down, but it is a sprint to the line here. And will it be the three-peat? It looks like it will be, working down that slope. And he knows it. Musau has done it again. A 3-time Big 12 champion outkicks his teammate all the way to the line. And how about that? 5 runners in the top 7 from Oklahoma State. We wonder how deep and strong would the lineup be for the top 2 teams in the country. Iowa State brought them all. It wasn't enough. The Cowboys are going to win in dominating fashion today, Lara. 20 points right now unofficially for Oklahoma State. It would be one of the best finishes in Big 12 championship history. The record score is 16. Colorado back in 2020 on this particular course. Oklahoma State 20? Are you kidding me?
That's incredible. And one of the things you have come to expect with Dave Smith's group is that they close really hard, whether that's cross country, indoor track, outdoor track. They position themselves to be very strong finishers, and that is what you saw right there. How about Ryan Shoppy there, the 5th runner for OK State, coming in that 7th position. Iowa State gets 2 within the top 5. This is what we were talking about early on, where that spread between your 1 and your 5 needs to be as absolutely tight as possible, and it doesn't get any closer than what you saw right there.
And the depth too. You know, you prepare. You're like, okay, can Musau make this happen? Can he win for a 3rd straight time? And then you kind of expect, well, this is maybe who's going to be 2nd behind him, 3rd behind him, 4th behind him. It's Adisu Gawadi who ends up coming across the line in 2nd for Oklahoma State. I'm not sure that's who you penned in to be the 2nd place finisher for the Cowboys today. Incredible depth for Dave Smith's squad. Again, it's always unofficial until you have potential challenges or if there was any sort of scoring, but we saw them come across the line. Oklahoma State's about to be a 14-time Big 12 champion.
And to put 20 points up in a conference meet, in one of the toughest conference meets in the country, when you have 4 of the top 10 teams nationally ranked, that's one of the differences when you get to that conference championship for a team title. Is it really does. It absolutely tests your depth, and your 5th stick has to be as strong as your 1 and your 2 positions. So thrilled. Brian Musau, what a deserving individual champion to go with 3 consecutive wins. And knowing him, he is probably even more thrilled to put the team in that position, even beyond his individual personal successes.
What does this say to the rest of the country watching this race?
Oklahoma State is a threat to win the national title on the men's side.
Are they the favorite now to win the national title?
Oh, how could you? I mean, I think you've certainly made an argument for that, no doubt. There's a lot that can happen between now and the national championship meet in late November. You still got to get to that national championship meet as well. There will be a lot that can play out and a lot that can factor in. You have to have health come into the equation, all of those things, and you want to be sure that you give your guys, you have enough momentum and you're sustaining that. That's basically a solid month of kind of sustaining and being at that type of level. But teams that have that championship experience and have been in contention will know how to do that. So you think about Iowa State, of course, a team that was national runner-up last year. They've been in that position before. Hey, how about Colorado? 87 points, top 3. Sean Carlson, just his 2nd season leading that Colorado Buffaloes program, with having some of those new additions that he has, like Dominic Serum. I think that for them to see this type of leap, especially for a storied distance program, to bring themselves back into conference positioning to be in a top 3, incredible what he is doing with that program in such a short period of time.
So again, Oklahoma State across the line in 1st, 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 7th.
Cowboy.
And if you were looking at the coaches poll rankings coming in, it went by the numbers. Iowa State and Oklahoma State, we wondered who would be 1 and 2. They flip-flopped those spots, but then Colorado, the 5th-ranked team in the country, comes across 3rd. BYU, the 8th-ranked team in the country, comes across in 4th. Our hosts from Kansas, their first top 5 in 3 years at this Big 12 cross-country championship. And that BYU team won't be a defense of the title. We mentioned so many new faces in that lineup for Ed Eyestone. They didn't have a runner inside the top 15, but all 5 crossing inside the top 30 today for that team. 102 points for the Cougars in this one. But 1 versus 2 certainly lived up to the hype early in this race. Everybody was in the mix of it. I mean, when you come down to it, Iowa State, 43 points in this one. All 5 runners inside the top 13. But when you're looking across at a team that had 5 finishers in the top 7, what a flex today. The 6th runner for Oklahoma State coming across just after the 5th runner for Iowa State in this one. Incredible performance from Oklahoma State to win their 14th Big 12 championship.